All right, just testing everything out and hope everyone is having a good evening. I hope that we can get started here in just a moment. So give everybody time to come in. Appreciate those who are interested in our study tonight and hope it'll be helpful for you. All right, at 7 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and get started. So thankful for each of you that are interested in this study. And I hope again that it'll be meaningful for you and you'll give us maybe some questions in the comments section and we'll answer them best we can as we go through. We've already got some questions from those through email. Appreciate that so much. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first session of Faith, Feelings, Mental Health. This is a Looking Forward live series where we bring faith and psychology together for hope, healing, and wholeness. Tonight, we're talking about this simple but very powerful idea that big feelings are not bad feelings. And as such, we know that many of us grew up thinking certain emotions were wrong. We may have been told not to be angry, not to cry, not to be afraid, and definitely don't question. But from both a psychological and faith perspective, feelings are part of being human. They're not enemies, they're signals. So before we begin, I do want to say this clearly that this session is for general education and for community support. This is not therapy. This is not counseling. I'm not diagnosing anyone tonight, and this is definitely not crisis intervention. So I ask you, please don't share any private or identifying personal information in the comments section. If you have questions or anything like that, we're more than glad to take those. Excuse me. I will say, though, that if you're in crisis or you're thinking about harming yourself or someone else, we'd ask you to please call 988 911 or go to the nearest emergency room. So, all that being said, and that disclaimer out there, tonight we're going to talk about how to name emotions, normalize them, and begin responding to them in healthy ways. So, we'll get that kicked off. All right. The first thing I want to all of us to understand is that the fact that feelings are not sins. Feelings are signals. Anger may tell us that something feels unfair, unsafe, or that we feel violated. Sadness may tell us that we've lost something meaningful. Fear may tell us that we feel threatened or uncertain. Shame may tell us that we feel exposed, rejected, or not enough. Joy may tell us that something is life giving. Disgust may tell us that something feels harmful or deeply wrong. The problem is not that we have feelings. The problem is when we don't understand them, when we suppress them, or when we let them control our actions. So there's a difference between having anger and hurting someone with anger. There's a vast difference between feeling fear and living completely ruled by fear. There's a difference between feeling sadness and believing sadness means that somehow God or others have abandoned us. So, in psychology, emotions are often understood as part of the body and brain's way of helping us respond to life. Emotions involve thoughts, physical sensations, memories, and meaning. So when we say, I feel overwhelmed, that feeling may include tightness in the chest, racing thoughts, a memory from the past, or from past pain. and a belief like, I can't handle this. So, what do we do? Okay. So, the first step is not judgment. So, definitely don't be harsh and just be judgmental. The first step is curiosity. So, instead of saying, I shouldn't feel this way, we can begin by asking, what is this feeling trying to tell me? So, our goal for tonight in this, before we move any further, is that I want us to leave with less shame. I want us to leave with more language as how to describe and discuss these matters and to process them correctly. And I want you to go away with at least one practical tool that will help you. Okay. Now, and again, I just want to remind everybody that uh, this is psychoeducation and community support. This isn't therapy, diagnosis, or crisis counseling. So again, if you have a crisis, or you want to hurt yourself, or you feel like you're going to do something that's out of character for yourself, okay, uh, we ask you to contact 911, 988, or go to the nearest emergency room. We want you to know that you're welcome here. But again, participate, listen, and reflect on what we're talking about. Okay. Um, and again, big feelings are information, and we want to understand what these feelings are trying to tell us. So, this feeling is not the enemy. The response is actually where the wisdom matters. Okay. So, again, we went over this common feelings and their messages about anger, sadness, fear, and shame. Anger lets you know something's up. Sadness lets you know that you're feeling down. Fear lets you know things are uncertain or unsafe. Shame makes us feel like we're exposed or that we're not enough. And again, joy feels like there's something life-giving, or there's new energy coming in. Disgust lets us know that something feels harmful or wrong. That generally has to do with somebody crossing our boundaries. And then loneliness is about connection and belonging. Okay, so the healthy question here is, what need is underneath the feeling, and not uh, why am I feeling this way and I should be ashamed. Okay, the good thing that we want to talk about here, and we want to understand how faith comes into this, is that faith gives us language. We've got long, actually hundreds and thousands of years of development of various language within different religious traditions. First thing I want to talk about tonight when it comes to faith, one of the reasons I love Psalms so much in the Hebrew Bible is because the book of Psalms, does not sanitize human emotions. The Psalms give us the full spectrum of what we feel in life. The Psalms are full of joy, praise, grief, there's anger, there's confusion, there's fear, there's loneliness, and there's hope. And if any of us have lived any time at all on this planet, we have felt each of these, at least to some degree or the other. So I just want to make you understand that the Bible doesn't present faithful people as people who never feel deeply. It presents faithful people as people who bring their whole selves before God. Psalms 13 begins with the cry, how long, O Lord? This isn't some kind of fake positivity. This isn't pop nonsense. This is a lament, and it's honesty. One of my favorite biblical scholars, Walter Brueggemann, emphasizes in his work that you really can't have joy until you understand lament. And you really can't process emotions correctly until you have a time to lament. This is why we love country songs so much, or we love sad songs that are very popular. Not because we enjoy the pain, but it gives us language. It gives us a way to express the pain. Psalm 42 says, "Why are you cast down, O my soul?" It's a person talking to their own inner life. They're noticing their emotional state instead of pretending that it's not there, or just trying to say, well, supposed to be a good person or religious person. I'm not supposed to have these feelings. We find in the Gospels that even Jesus himself wept. Jesus experienced grief. Jesus showed compassion. He expressed distress at Gethsemane. So it matters. This matters because it means emotional life is not opposed to spiritual life. That's why a mature faith does not require emotional denial. We don't have to be stoic about these matters. You can fully embrace what you feel in life to try to understand what this is signaling to you. Sometimes people confuse faith with emotional suppression. They think trusting God means never feeling afraid or sad or angry, confused. One reason I don't like some music you hear in churches is because it just seems like it's all victorious music where you just go from one victory to another victory, and you're never supposed to be down and you're never supposed to go through any problems. That's why I'm saying that I really appreciate someone like a biblical scholar like Walter Brueggemann, who puts all this emphasis on look at how much lament is in the Hebrew Bible. I mean, we've got a whole book of Lamentations all about this, where you're processing this grief and this deep seated anger and sadness and disappointment. So faith doesn't mean we just give up feelings and that we just live in victory all the time and that we're never supposed to feel bad. That's when it turns into toxic religion. But faith means our feelings are not too much for God. They're not too much that we can't understand them or try to process them correctly. Okay. And again, Jesus himself wept. He had compassion, was distressed. So if you're a Christian, if Jesus could grieve and feel compassion and agonize in prayer, then emotion itself is not a failure of faith. Okay. Again, I'll emphasize faith does not mean we have no feelings. It means our feelings are not too much for God, or that they're not too much that we can't process them. All right. What can we do? At this point, one of the most helpful emotional regulation skills that we teach and is often taught through counseling and therapy is learning to name what we feel. Many of us only have a very small emotional vocabulary. We'll say things like, well, I'm fine, or I'm stressed, or I'm mad, I'm pissed, I'm just tired. But underneath those words is something that's more specific. It's where we dig into this and we have a dialogue about it. Is stress may actually be rooted in fear. Anger oftentimes is rooted in hurt. And being tired is actually being just emotionally drained. These are real feelings that each of us have, and we deal with whether it's work or relationships or a combination of all these things. Now, no matter how spiritual you are or how strong a person that you may be, one thing that I learned, especially going through my PhD program now in psychology and counseling, is I'm glad there's a lot of emphasis on the fact that people that are involved in social work or in counseling need it themselves too, because you go through a lot of things, even though you may have all the vocabulary and you may have all the knowledge and you have all the strategies. sometimes you still have to have somebody that you can work with to have that dialogue in order that you can uncover really what's going on, because we're human beings and we hide these things deeply within ourselves. So that's why it's important to understand that. Our frustration oftentimes actually just comes from disappointment. And then numbness, of course, numbness just could be grief. But see, when we name our emotions more accurately, we give ourselves a better chance to respond wisely. If I say I'm just mad, I can react pretty sharply. But if I slow down and say, well, I feel like people have dismissed me, someone has embarrassed me, or people make me feel unimportant, now I've got more information. Now I can understand really what's going on and I can respond to a deeper wound instead of just simply reacting from these surface emotions. Now, this is important for children as much as adults. Kids often act out feelings that they don't have any words for. Any parent that's raised young children know that children, get really physical sometimes, or they throw tantrums, or uh, they just break down and cry for no reason. We think there's no reason, everything's okay, or there's no reason for them to be fussing and fighting and going on. But they just don't have language. They don't have the skills. They don't have the cognitive ability to just think this stuff out. Again, they'll throw a fit. They'll shut down. They'll become defiant. And you think, what have I done? I haven't done anything to deserve any of this. And because again, we think there should be a reason for it. But sometimes you just can't say, I feel overwhelmed. I feel left out. I feel betrayed. I feel afraid. I feel disappointed. Or I just need help sort of calming down. Adults do this too, though. It's not just kids. Um, we just do it in more sociably acceptable ways. So, one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves and others is an emotional vocabulary. All right. We're going to do just this simple reflection practice and see if this is helpful for you. So again, just I invite you, if you want to participate, you want to put something in the comments, you got questions, or you can participate here, you can put it in the comments. Just let me know how this goes. Okay, let's do this very simple exercise. Take a moment, slow down here, ask yourself, what's the one feeling I've experienced strongly this week? Now today we're this is Thursday, so we're getting close to Friday. Some people are at the end of the work week. Some people never get an end of the work week. But think about one feeling that you really strongly experienced this week. Okay, now try to move past the basic word. Instead of just saying stressed, ask yourself, was I anxious? Was I overwhelmed? Was I discouraged? Was I angry? Was I sad? Did I feel lonely? Because again, stress covers all this whole spectrum of human emotion. And again, it signals something deeper. Maybe you felt ashamed. Maybe you felt ashamed to be around somebody, or somebody said something that was embarrassing. Maybe you felt confused. Maybe you were excited about something and somebody else just didn't share that excitement and they just thought, well, I don't care about that. Maybe you felt hopeful. Doesn't always have to be a negative thing. If you had a really strong hopeful emotion, or maybe you just felt grateful. Okay. As you've thought about that, now ask yourself, where did I feel it in my body? Did you have a tight chest? Oftentimes with anxiety or fear, stress, we really feel it down here in the chest because we can feel that blood pressure rise. If you feel anger, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've gotten real angry and you feel it here, you feel real heavy in your shoulders. If you're really disturbed by something, sometimes you can feel it in your stomach. Your stomach just feels queasy. Or, if you've had really something important to tell somebody, but you're afraid of rejection or afraid somebody's going to minimize what you have to say, sometimes that can cause your stomach to just churn. Maybe you've had a deadline. Maybe work has given you a deadline and you got to absolutely get this done. Sometimes you can have a headache. Sometimes restlessness or sleeplessness. Sometimes we tear up if we've feel sadness or disappointed, or we really had high hopes for somebody and they let us down. Sometimes that can cause tears. Now what I'm getting at is you're feeling a physical effect in your body somewhere. And maybe after you felt all of this, you finally just feel fatigued and you just collapse on your chair or your couch and just say, I've got to sleep for a little while. I've got to do something. Okay, after thinking about all that and where it was maybe manifesting in how you felt bodily. Now, thirdly, ask yourself, what might this feeling be trying to tell me? Maybe this is signaling something to you like it's telling you need some rest. Some people try to burn the candle at both ends. They're high achievers. I've done counseling in the past with lots of people who are high achievers, and believe you me, they just don't see the need for rest. They feel like that's a waste of time. They've got to get something done. But sometimes your body's telling you, hey, it's time to rest. Uh, Maybe you need a boundary. That's why I say maybe there's times shame or disgust comes about because somebody has infiltrated your bubble or crossed a boundary with you. Maybe you just need some support. Maybe you just feel like you just abandoned. Maybe everybody has these high expectations for you, but you just don't have the support you need to make it happen. Maybe you just need to grieve. Maybe you've lost someone or lost something, or, uh, you know, oftentimes we think if we lose people in our lives, that's worth grieving. But if we lose a pet or if we lose something important in our life or a habit, or, if we're used to going somewhere each week to the store, or we're used to going to the same place to shop and somehow something's disrupted that, we grieve a little bit over that because we've lost somewhat of our routine and it's done something to us. Maybe you just need to have a conversation. Maybe you've got all this bubbling up inside of you, things you just want to tell somebody. Um, and you just dying to have somebody to talk to about it. Or maybe you just need to stop carrying something by yourself and you just need somebody to help you carry it just a little further. Okay, you don't have to fix the feeling tonight. You don't have to fix any of this tonight. I'm just going through this simple practice with you to try to give you some tools, to give you a language that you can put to what's going on. I just want you to notice it. Give yourself some compassion and not be so judgmental of, why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't be feeling this way. Everything is good in my life. I can't count the number of people that's come through our practice or come to counseling this over the years that come in and say, I don't know why I feel this way. I shouldn't. My job, I've got a really good job. My wife is great. My husband's great. My kids are great. I know other people whose lives are falling apart, but I just don't know why I feel this way. Or maybe your life is just crumbling, you know. So I'll say, give yourself a little compassion. The same compassion you give other people, it's okay to practice that on yourself. All right. Now, of course, this doesn't mean every feeling gets to be in charge. Okay. Feelings are valid as experiences, but they are not always accurate as guides. I might feel rejected, but that doesn't always mean someone rejected me. I might feel afraid, but that doesn't always mean that I'm in danger. Somebody comes in and they're having panic attacks. There may not be any reason in the world for them to have one, but they're having it, and it's telling you something. Uh, I might feel ashamed, but that doesn't mean that I'm worthless. I might be ashamed because I made a mistake or I did something out of character or I said something in front of somebody that I shouldn't have said. And it makes me feel worthless, but that doesn't mean you are worthless. I may feel angry, but that doesn't mean revenge is the right response or just getting back at somebody. So the goal is not to obey every feeling. The goal is to listen, understand, regulate, and respond wisely. Listen to the feeling, test the story, choose the wise response. So the simple process comes down to this again, name it. What am I feeling? Notice it. Where do I feel it in my body? Normalize it. It makes sense that I would feel something. Discern it. What is true? What is this feeling asking for? And then we can respond wisely. What action aligns with love, wisdom, safety, and maturity? Okay, these are the things that we can definitely be asking ourselves. So here's your little cheat sheet. The NNR method. This is a nice little practical tool you can take away. So name, notice, and respond. Name, again, what am I feeling? Notice, where do I feel it? Where do I feel it in my body? And then respond. What is one wise next step I can take? Again, an example of this we looked at before. I feel anxious. So I've got tightness in my chest. What can I do? Well, immediately I can take 3 slow breaths and then choose to go to the next step. But sometimes just breathing for a moment will help more than you could ever imagine. So, healthy responses to big feelings can be as simple as just breathing slowly, can be taking a walk. You can maybe journal or write down some things. Maybe maybe you got racing thoughts and you just can't put them together. Or sometimes it's good just to write them down and be honest about what's going on in the moment, because sometimes later on you come back and read it. It's like, well, what's all that about? Okay. One thing we can do as people of faith is pray without pretending. You can go and say, "Oh God," and just be all humble and just go through the motions. And we're going to tell God how great He is, and pray for all the people out here, the young children that's going without food, and the homeless people, and all like that. Or we could just pray without pretending all this, and just really get down to it and pour our heart out and say, "This is what I feel right now. I feel awful." We could call somebody that we feel like is a safe, trustworthy person that we could talk with. We could set a boundary. Set boundaries. Boundaries are good things. Boundaries help us keep things regulated in our life, and gives us a sense of self-worth too. And of course, we can always wait before we react. We don't have to just react immediately and in every situation. Sometimes you have to, if you're in danger or you're being abused or you're being threatened, get away and just react as quickly as possible in that situation. But of course, here the goal is not to make emotions disappear. It's not what we're telling you. But the goal is to respond with some wisdom and compassion. That way we can understand more of the situation rather than just jumping around and all of that. Okay, so we talked about name, notice, and respond. All right, now we're going to get a little bit into some of our community reflection questions. And I'd love for you to reflect on these too in the comments. If you want to make a comment on this, but again, only as much as you feel comfortable sharing. And please don't share any personal information down there about you or somebody else. But, please feel free to participate. You're welcome to respond in the comments below. But here's some good questions for us tonight for some reflection. What emotion was hard to talk about in your family or your church culture? Lots of us grew up in a church culture where you couldn't question anything, especially whatever theology was taught or lack of theology that was taught. Or maybe there was things in your family. I know lots of things aren't kosher in some families to bring up, especially when it comes to sexuality or it comes to, how you really feel about maybe other family members. We're often taught in family cultures to just keep everything bottled up. We're often taught this in church cultures, but I don't know. You all may have some comments about that. Again, we're more than welcome to put those in. What feeling do you want to understand better? Would you like to understand maybe why you're feeling a certain way, or why am I having a panic attack? Why do I feel so anxious? Um, Another one here. What helps you calm down when feeling something that gets really big or you feel just overwhelmed? What are some things that help calm you down? Or is it to write something down? Is it to talk to somebody that you feel like is trustworthy? Is it maybe to grab a cup of coffee? is Sometimes just getting a cup of coffee just helps calm you down a little bit, or maybe drinking a little bit of water. Maybe just listening to some music. Sometimes listening to your favorite music can help sort of calm things down and help you focus. And then, what would change if you believed your emotions were meaningful and not bad? And I hope you go away with that tonight. If all the things we're talking about, I hope you go away understanding that you can, it's okay to believe that your emotions and how you feel has meaning to it. It may not make any sense in the moment. And again, you might feel like you're just crazy for feeling this way, or you're not a good person for feeling the way you. But again, you can't always control your feelings because they're there and they're telling you something about what's going on. That's not necessarily bad. It's just again how we react to them. So again, if you more than welcome to share that in the comment section below, if you will, or let me know what you think. All right. Some of the takeaways that we have tonight, and I hope that you'll understand this, is that big feelings are not bad feelings. Okay. Your feelings are not a bad thing. Your sadness is not a bad thing. It feels horrible in the moment. Your anger isn't shocking to God. Your fear isn't so shameful, you know. And I will absolutely fight on this hill for this one. Your questions are not too dangerous for God. And you can question how you feel, question others, question the Bible, question your faith. these aren't so dangerous for God that he's just going to be so angry about it. These are just real things that we need to understand are part of a healthy way of processing what we feel. And it's part of growing up and becoming more mature. And again, the goal is not to become emotionless, some stoic, emotionless person. The goal is to become emotionally honest, spiritually grounded, and hopefully relationally wise. So, three of the main takeaways tonight. Big feelings are not bad feelings. Okay. Faith has room for emotional honesty. And then, thirdly, name, notice, and respond. I hope you'll take that tool away with you tonight. Okay. So, again, big feelings aren't bad feelings. They're invitations to pay attention, to seek wisdom, to practice compassion, and to move toward healing. All right. This week, I want you just to pause sometime during the week and ask yourself, what am I feeling? What am I feeling right now? Where do I feel it? And then what steps do I need to take next? And again, your feelings aren't too big for God. And I hope we can become uh of course honest about how we feel and not have to suppress these things. It's not good to just push all that down, and our nervous systems take in a lot of trauma over the years. And oftentimes that's the reason why we have these panic attacks, or we have feelings that we don't understand there, because our nervous system absorbs all that in and it finally releases it and starts making us feel in ways that we can't understand. So again, I want to invite you to become honest with yourself and maybe have a friend or someone you can talk to about these sorts of things, where again, have honest lament, as the great Walter Brueggemann used to say. But these are again invitations to help us pay attention to ourselves, to seek wisdom, to practice compassion, and move toward healing. So, thank you for joining us tonight. Our next session will continue this conversation. As our next session, we're going to be talking about anxiety, the nervous system, and of course, trusting God. And as we close, I'll say this: I hope the God of compassion will help us become more honest about how we feel without being ruled by what we feel. And I hope He gives us courage to name our emotions, wisdom to understand them, grace to respond with love and maturity. And I pray that each of us can be helped, that we can know that we're not alone, and that healing is possible one honest step at a time. I hope you all have a great week. Thank you so much and look forward to seeing you next time.